The flames consume everything they touch. Paper curls and blackens. Words written in a child's careful handwriting disappear into ash. A family huddles around their stove, one last source of warmth in an apartment where winter has crept through broken windows and bombed-out walls. 11-year-old Tanya Savicheva watches her diary burn. The thick notebook where she recorded her daily life, her thoughts, her dreams, her world before the siege, feeds the fire for precious minutes of heat. It is December 1941. Leningrad has been under siege for 4 months. The city of 3 million has become a prison, surrounded by German forces determined to starve its people into submission. But Tanya doesn't know yet that losing her diary is the least of what she will lose. She doesn't know that in 2 days, her sister Zhenya will not come home from the munitions factory. She doesn't know that she will need to find another way to record what is about to happen to her family. She doesn't know that her mother will soon give her a different notebook, one with alphabetized pages that will become the most haunting document of the siege of Leningrad. The flames die down, the apartment grows cold again, and in the silence, death begins to circle the Savichev family like a patient predator. Before the war, the Savichev family lived like any other in Leningrad. Nikolai Rodionovich, a baker, had died when Tanya was 6, leaving his wife Maria to raise 5 children alone. But they managed. Maria worked as a seamstress. The older children contributed what they could. Nina worked at the power station, maintaining boiler equipment. She carried a small notebook, alphabetized pages for technical notes. Most of the pages remained blank. It was just a work tool, unremarkable, forgotten. Then came September 8, 1941. The siege ring closed around Leningrad like a noose. Food supplies dwindled. Ration cards became more valuable than money. The family that had once gathered around their dinner table now counted out breadcrumbs. Winter arrived early and merciless. Temperatures dropped to -30 Celsius. The city's heating system failed. Water pipes froze and burst. Nina stopped coming home. During a bombardment, she disappeared. Whether she evacuated, whether she died, whether she fled, no one knew. Her chair at the dinner table remained empty. Her technical notebook, abandoned at home, collected dust. But Maria Savicheva saw something else in that abandoned notebook. She saw blank pages where her youngest daughter could continue what the flames had taken away. She placed the notebook in Tanya's hands. "For when you need to remember," she said. Tanya had no idea she was being handed the instrument of her family's memorial. Zhenya doesn't come home from her shift at the munitions factory. She has been walking 7 kilometers each way through the frozen city, working 12-hour days manufacturing shells for the defense of Leningrad. Her body, already weakened by months of starvation rations, finally surrenders. Tanya opens Nina's notebook to the letter Z. Her handwriting is careful, precise, the way she was taught in school before the bombs started falling. Zhenya died on 28 December at 12:30 in the morning, 1942. She gets the year wrong. When you are 11 years old and everyone around you is dying, time becomes elastic, unreliable. What matters is not the year, but the moment, 12:30 in the morning, when her sister's breathing stopped. The family postpones the burial. At their grandmother's urging, they keep Zhenya's ration card until the end of the month. In the siege, the dead feed the living for as long as official records allow. It is not ghoulish, it is survival. But survival comes with a price. 1 month later, their grandmother can no longer pay it. The cold, the hunger, the constant fear, they consume her from within. Tanya turns to the letter B in her notebook. Babushka died January 25th at 3 o'clock, 1942. The alphabet becomes a calendar of loss, each letter another grave. Before the siege, Uncle Vasya's apartment was Tanya's sanctuary. Vasily Savichev, one of her father's brothers, had fought in the First World War and returned with a soldier's discipline and a reader's soul. His apartment overflowed with books, novels, poetry, history. When the adult conversations grew too serious, when her mother worked late into the evening, Tanya would slip away to Uncle Vasya's. They would read together by lamplight. He introduced her to Pushkin, to Tolstoy, to worlds beyond the confines of their Leningrad neighborhood. Books, he told her, survive everything. They outlast wars, outlast governments, outlast the people who write them. But books cannot survive when there is no fuel for heat. By March 1942, Uncle Vasya has begun burning his library to stay warm. Page by page, story by story, his collection disappears into the stove. The novels that transported Tanya to distant lands now provide a few precious minutes of warmth in a freezing apartment. Uncle Vasya grows thinner, weaker. The man who taught her that words are immortal can barely speak. His body is consuming itself, muscle and fat disappearing until only determination keeps him upright. On March 13th, even determination fails him. Tanya opens her notebook to the letter V. Her handwriting, once so careful, now shakes with cold and hunger. Uncle Vasya died April 13th at 2 o'clock at night, 1942. Again she records the wrong date. Time has lost all meaning except for the moment when breathing stops. The apartment where they once read together falls silent. The books are all burned. The stories are all gone. Only Tanya's notebook remains, adding another letter to its alphabet of grief. Spring 1942 brings no relief to Leningrad. The snow melts to reveal bodies that have lain frozen in the streets all winter. Thousands upon thousands of corpses, preserved by the cold, now begin to decompose in the warming air. The smell of death hangs over the city like a shroud. In the Savichev apartment, the silences grow longer. Fewer voices around the dinner table, fewer footsteps in the hallway. The walls seem to press closer with each passing day, as if the apartment itself is shrinking along with the family. Brother Leka, Leonid, still goes to work at the Admiralty shipyard. An engineer and musician, he has always been gentle, artistic, too sensitive for the brutal mathematics of survival. But he persists, walking to the shipyard each morning, contributing what little he can to Leningrad's defense. His body betrays him gradually, then all at once. On March 17th, he collapses at the shipyard. They take him to the hospital, but it is too late. Months of starvation have left his organs too weak to recover. At 5 o'clock in the morning, Leonid Savichev draws his last breath. Tanya writes in her notebook under the letter L, Leka died March 17th at 5 o'clock in the morning, 1942. This time, her timing is exact. This time, she gets it right. The apartment grows quieter still. Uncle Lesha, Alexei, another of her father's brothers, follows soon after. The starvation that claimed Vasya, that claimed Leka, claims him too. His death comes swiftly, mercifully. On May 10th, Tanya records under the letter L. Uncle Lesha died May 10th at 4 o'clock, 1942. Now only two remain, mother and daughter, 11-year-old Tanya and 52-year-old Maria. The notebook's alphabetized pages tell the story of a family's destruction, letter by letter, death by death. But the alphabet is not finished with them yet. Maria Ignatievna Savicheva, seamstress mother, the woman who gave her daughter Nina's notebook so she could remember, becomes the final entry in her own family's memorial. Tanya is alone now. The apartment echoes with emptiness. The rooms where her family lived and laughed and argued now contain only shadows and silence. She moves through them like a ghost, 11 years old and completely orphaned, surrounded by the belongings of the dead. She opens her notebook one last time. Under the letter M, she writes, Mama died May 13th at 7:30 in the morning, 1942. Then on the letter S, the Savichevs are dead, and finally on the letter E, everyone is dead. But Tanya is not dead, not yet. She continues to live in the apartment with her notebook, the only witness to her family's extinction. She tends the graves that exist only in alphabetized pages. She preserves the memory of 9 people in 9 short sentences. The siege continues around her. The city continues to die. In August 1942, nursing brigades moved through the streets and apartment buildings of Leningrad. They were looking for children who had been left alone. They found Tanya in the apartment on second line. She was 12 years old. She was barely conscious. She had been alone since May. The notebook was on the table. She left it there. Along with 140 other children, she was taken first to an orphanage in the Smolny district and then evacuated out of the city across Lake Ladoga, the road of life. The only route in and out of besieged Leningrad. Trucks carrying supplies in and the most vulnerable out across the water. She arrived at a village called Krasny Bor in the Gorky region. Most of the children with her recovered. Tanya did not. The doctors found tuberculosis of the intestines, of the bones, of the eyes. The damage from 2 winters of starvation was permanent. She was given food and medicine and care. It was not enough. A teacher at the orphanage wrote to Tanya's brother Mikhail. She wrote, "Tanya is now alive, but she does not look healthy. A doctor who visited says she is very ill. She needs rest, special care, nutrition, better climate, and most of all, tender motherly care." There was no motherly care left to give. In May 1944, she was moved from the orphanage to a hospital in Shatsky. On the 1st of July 1944, Tanya Savicheva died. She was 14 years old. The war in Europe had 10 more months to run. She never saw it end. She was buried in the village cemetery. For a long time, the grave had no marker. She never knew that Nina had survived. She never knew that Mikhail had survived. She died believing she was the last. Back in Leningrad, in the empty apartment on second line, the notebook sat on the table where she had left it. Waiting. In 1945, Nina Savicheva returned to Leningrad. She had been evacuated across Lake Ladoga on the day she disappeared, without warning, without time to send word. While her family starved and died, she had survived in safety, not knowing. She went back to the apartment on second line. The rooms were stripped bare. Everything that could be burned had been burned. Everything that could be eaten had been eaten. And on the table where Tanya had left it was the notebook. Nina read what her sister had written in it. 9 entries, 9 deaths, and then 3 sentences with no name at all. She had not known about any of it. Not one death. Not even Tanya. Nina gave the notebook to a journalist. The journalist gave it to the authorities. And the small notebook that had been meant for boiler equipment specifications began its journey into history. November 1945. The Palace of Justice in Nuremberg, Germany. The world's attention focused on this courtroom where the architects of Nazi policy faced judgment for their crimes against humanity. Prosecutors presented evidence of genocide, of systematic murder, of the deliberate starvation of civilian populations. Among the exhibits, a small notebook with alphabetized pages. Tanya Savicheva's entries were read aloud into the court record. The translator's voice carried across the chamber as 9 simple sentences described the death of a family. The defendants, the men who ordered the siege of Leningrad, who decided that 3 million people should starve, sat in silence as an 11-year-old girl's words were entered into evidence. Zhenya died on the 28th of December at 12:30 in the morning. Grandmother died on the 25th of January at 3 o'clock. Leka died on the 17th of March at 5 o'clock in the morning. Uncle Vasya died on the 13th of April at 2 o'clock at night. Uncle Lesha died on the 10th of May at 4 o'clock. Mama died on the 13th of May at 7:30 in the morning. The Savichevs are dead. Everyone is dead. Only Tanya is left. But Tanya, too, was gone by then. Killed by the same starvation, the same siege, the same deliberate policy that claimed her family. The notebook spoke for all of them. The judges listened. The world watched. And a family of 9 people from a street on Vasilevsky Island testified from beyond the grave to the cost of what had been done to their city. The notebook is now in the State Museum of the History of Saint Petersburg. It is kept in a glass case. This video is dedicated to all those affected by war. If this story moved you, please like and subscribe. There are more stories to tell.